I want to preface this video by saying anything negative in this review is completely negated by the fact that there was a split diopter shot in this episode. Not actually, because for some reason people can't register sarcasm anymore, but that was a pleasant surprise. My first negative thing though is that I think the intro sucks. Why are all show intros the same now? So we are 2 episodes into Dune Prophecy now, and I'm still standing, I'm still here. I am at once waiting to see how good it's gonna be, and also bearing in mind that there are only 6 episodes in this season. But after a first episode that was mostly exposition and setting things up, the dominoes are beginning to fall. The plot is thickening. We have an attempt at the agony of Vorian Atreides name drop. We're going to have a full conversation about one Desmond Hart. So spoilers ahead if you have not watched Dune Prophecy episode 2, but if you have, let me know your thoughts and let's get into it. We'll go through kind of what happened in the episode and then go more in depth on the bigger developments at the end. But we're coming off of the deaths of both young Pruitt and Kasha. We get to see an ex-Rosac student from the Suk school where they study medicine. You'll recognize that mark on her forehead from Dr. Yue in the films. And Desmond Hart just straight up admits to doing it to Emperor Haviko, and he doesn't know what to say. That man is completely useless without the women in his life, which was the goal. We also get Tula temporarily running the ship back on Wallach 9, and she tells Lila that they need her to go through the agony to communicate with Mother Rakella. This process to create a Reverend Mother that at this point in time is far from perfected and extremely deadly. The Bene Gesserit are not supposed to have strong bonds because it would jeopardize their mission, but I really like their relationship and how Tula really views her as a daughter. I know Emily Watson as Valia is the main Bene Gesserit character, but I think my favorite performance so far is either Olivia Williams as Tula or Travis Fimmel as Desmond. But in that scene, Tula brings up this term again, the Tyrann Arafel, and she describes it as, quote, a tyrannical force that we would have to reckon with that could well destroy us. She says, we believe the reckoning is here, that a new enemy has emerged to undermine our power. Cut to the Lord Fuckboy sex scene. And look, I'm not trying to do when the makers put unnecessary sex scenes, but I just found this whole thing unpleasant to watch. I did not need to see him doing that. We get it. You have boobs. You're an adult show. Also, enough with the CGI space cocaine. Actors used to actually snort something, or they would at least show something real and then cut away from it, goddammit. I did not like this scene at all, but the Rechese daughter gets out of Constantine that a man, aka Desmond, is in custody for the death of Pruitt, and she says also in this scene that the real power is whoever controls Arrakis and the spice melange. After that, we get a scene with Emperor Haviko and Natalia, and I love when Natalia is saying, let's not rush to execute our friends to please our enemies, and telling Emperor Haviko that they could use Desmond to their advantage. So they lie to the Rechese family and say that they don't have anyone in custody, but Valia sees through that lie and they let her interrogate Desmond when she shows up to Seleucia Secundus by surprise. Good scene. This standoff between Desmond and Valia is super fun, and I love this twist that she isn't really able to crack him or get to him because he's legitimately telling the truth. For the most part, he has nothing to hide. We're then introduced to this resistance group that includes the bartender that we saw in the first episode with the blue spice eyes and the swordmaster, Kieran Atreides. The most interesting bit about this scene is that it's said that he is a direct descendant of Vorian Atreides. Big name drop. Vorian Atreides, I think, is one of the more interesting characters from the book, and he's virtually immortal, so they could potentially do something with that. It would be cool if he was in it, but I do feel like it was just a name drop, and they're mostly introducing that he's an Atreides descendant to fuel Valia's hatred and have this secondary motivation for her as a Harkonnen. Otherwise, at this point, I do not care. I mean, the fact that the Bene Gesserit are behind the resistance or allowing resistance to happen in order to keep power in check is relevant, but we'll see how much screen time this group gets going forward, or if it really was just shown so that we could see Valia getting the Atreides name and trying to snuff them out. Now, the crown jewel of this episode is kind of the scene where Lila attempts the agony. It was kind of metal as hell. Not only is it extremely creepy as she descends into this genetic memory the further, and there's some really neat camera work to create that effect, but when she thinks she's found her mother, it's actually her grandmother, aka Sister Dorothea, who was murdered by Valia, as we saw in the first episode. And she is so angry at Valia, the Harkonnen, that she tries to kill Lila in order to squash their hope of getting answers from Rakella. Honestly, respect. I was not expecting them to go that route, and we get this shot in her eye of the sisters of Christmas past as they take her under, and she appears to have died, but it seems like Lila is still alive or in some sort of coma, or maybe it's just her dead body in the preview for the following episode. So I'm guessing she may be coming back somehow. Before that, though, we get the full line from Rakella about the Tyr and Arafel, and she says, "The key to the reckoning is one born twice, once in blood, once in spice, a revenant full of scars, a weapon born of war, on a path too short." Then we get this final scene, probably the second best, if not tied for the best scene, with Desmond Hart and Valia, where Valia attempts to use the voice on him to make him kill himself, but he resists it. She's like, oh shit, to being able to resist the voice is pretty huge and just adds more to the confusion of what he actually is. Then we get this line for him where he says, "I now know your worst fear. It's not about people not listening to you. It's about them hearing you and just not caring." Brutal stuff. You could tell the little insecure Harkonnen in her did not like that. And going forward, now he's won over the trust of Natalia and Emperor Haviko, because and Haviko, you know, he just does whatever other people tell him to do. But Valia is being pushed out, and she knows it. She knows that they have now lost the trust of the Emperor, and she says at one point that they need to remind him of their value to him. What I did note, too, that I didn't mention is there are a few conversations between the sisters at the Rosak school, especially one between Jen and Lila before Lila decides to do the agony, where Jen brings attention to the fact that they preach sisterhood above all, when really the sisters are completely disposable in the face of their quest for power and control. I do like that they're actually showing the Bene Gesserit for the ways that it is very uncaring and fallible. Tula and Valia kind of represent that dichotomy. But the big question, who is Desmond Hart? So we know he has powers that he believes he acquired when he was swallowed by a sandworm during the Harvester attack on Arrakis. He can now seemingly make people burn from within with his mind, but he also claims to have some sort of prescience. We don't know exactly how much, but we know he can quote unquote see into the sisters' plans and their past actions. I'm already seeing theories buzzing around. Is he a Tleilaxu? Is he a Gola? I feel like it's Mephisto all over again. I have to be honest with you guys, I don't think they would do the Tleilaxu thing or Golas. If you don't know, the Tleilaxu are the group in Dune who specialize in like weird technology and genetic/biological manipulation. They created something called a Gola, which is essentially like a clone. From where I'm sitting, the way that Rakella describes the Tyr and Arafel matches up with what we know about Desmond, born once from blood and once from spice, a weapon born from war. He is something that was birthed from the sisters' actions because they were behind the Harvester attack, and that harkens back to something that Desmond said in episode 1, that there is a war going on in front of our very eyes. The word weapon, though, does maybe implicate something like that it could have been that he was cloned by the Tleilaxus, and people have been saying maybe he was like technologically put back together by them. Again, I think that is just really in the weeds. I don't know if they are going to be brave enough to actually go there, but if so, my question then would still be, how does he have these powers, these specific powers? So lots to discover there. That is like really what's intriguing me about the show right now. And again, with the Lila agony scene, this is what I want to see. Like, give me the psychedelic, like mystical Dune stuff. I don't want generic sci-fi. I don't want Game of Thrones politics. I will say I am seeing a lot of like, oh, they're just doing Game of Thrones, and I don't quite feel like that. Like, I feel like the sci-fi elements help a lot, but now we're gonna see like which threads they really lean into, because they are setting up a lot of stuff, and I just hope that that's not the downfall of the show. It looks like we're gonna get more Valia flashbacks in the next episode. I definitely want to see more of that. I'm curious if the Vorian Atreides name drop is something substantial or just an Easter egg. So we will see. I'm holding out hope. If you're watching, let me know what you thought. Who are your favorite characters? What do you think is going on with Desmond? We will be talking about episode 3 next week and all the way through the end of the season. So don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.